All right. I'm going to play a little bit of music so that we can let our people in slowly.
It's so shiny, Dave. I love it.
Greetings, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am so very pleased to be hosting your event tonight. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's going on. So for those of you who are brand new, we are Lost City Books. We are a small, independent, used, new, and rare bookstore in the heart of Washington, D.C. in Adams Morgan. We specialize in a carefully curated selection of books centered around the interests and needs, of course, of our community. And we are staffed by what I like to think of as a really cool team of folks, booksellers, events managers like myself, and book lovers especially. So I hope that you, if you're in DC, you come and find us on 18th Street. And if you're new to finding out about us, you can hop onto our website, lostcitybookstore.com, and find out more about our events, about the books that we have in stock, and about our book clubs as well. Now, I'd like to introduce to you our wonderful authors for the evening. We're hosting contributors, to Glitter and Ashes by produced by Neon Hemlock. And I'm very excited to have these folks here with us today. So a little bit about Glitter and Ashes, queer tales of a world that wouldn't die. Glitter and Ashes is an anthology of post-apocalyptic fiction centering queer joy and community in the face of disaster. What does hope look like when everything is lost? Now more than ever, we need to revel in the bright spots amidst the darkness. About our contributors who are speaking tonight. Dave Ring is a queer writer of speculative fiction living in Washington, D.C. He is the author of The Hidden Ones, 2021, and numerous short stories. He is also the publisher and managing editor of Neon Hemlock Press and the co-editor of Baffling Magazine. Find him online at www.dave-ring.com or at SlipHawk on Twitter. Louise is a lover of birds, a writer of words, and a believer. You guys can hear my dog in the background, I apologize. A writer of words and a believer in the healing powers of peppermint tea. After leaving their job as a civil engineer, they took up poetry and fiction instead, and they still harbor a secret love of math. Links to their work can be found at azlouise.com. Their novella, Off Time Jive, is part of Neon Hemlock's 2023 novella series. Izzy Wasserstein is a queer and trans radical and a writer of fiction and poetry. Her most recent poetry collection is When Creation Falls. She teaches writing, literature, and film at a public university in the American Midwest and shares a home with the writer Nora E. Darrington and their animal companions. Her debut short story collection, All the Hometowns You Can't Stay Away From, came out summer 2022 from Neon Hemlock. She can be found online at izzywasserstein.com. A.P. Thayer is a queer Mexican-American author based out of Los Angeles. He writes cross-genre speculative fiction, blending everything from horror and magical realism to weird fiction and grim dark fantasy. Find him online at apthayer.com. And without anything further, I would like to lovingly welcome our authors tonight. Everyone, hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
How are you all doing tonight? And thank you for excusing my dog in the background doing the most.
Well, now you have to pay the dog tax and show us.
I know. Can we see the dog?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in the other room.
No.
I might let him out in a second.
Yeah.
He's a big boy.
During the commercial break, maybe.
Just an advertisement for a little pit mix.
Yeah.
I don't think dogs ever need apologies when they're like, I think when they make themselves known, that's appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm so excited to have you all with us tonight, and I'm really curious to hear each of your perspectives on why you elected to be a part of this collection and what it means to you.
Well, if it's not cheeky, maybe I'll start just because I edited the book, and part of coming at this was from like both the joy to be found with like the fun aesthetic of some like post-apocalyptic stuff. I think I had just been recently like blown away by Fury Road and was just really reveling in that whole vibe. But more than that, I've always enjoyed the ways that people tell stories about supporting each other when things are like really, really dire. And that was just a really fraught and exciting place to ask people to, will you write stories in this place? And then the book that came together, both, played with that thing of like finding community or togetherness, like in darkness, but also like that was 2020 when the book came out, and it was a hard year for a lot of people between the pandemic and the police brutality and everything else that was going on, and it felt like a important project to be working on in the midst of that at the same time. So it started with vibes, and then it just ended up being also just sort of like the perfect thing I needed to be doing for myself in that moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dave, it was pretty prophetic of you to put this call together in 2019.
I regret the prophecy. If I if I had anything to do with it, please smite me.
Smite you.
I think you're off the hook because I think Sarah Pinsker wrote a whole book that was a prophecy about this. So like, I think you're safe.
Hopefully, I'm far enough down the line. If the smiting will
Your time will come. Don't worry.
Yeah, and then these beautiful people all sent me stories, and I got to put them in this book. I think what's interesting too about the three of you is all your stories are, I think, on the darker end of the spectrum for the book, which is kind of interesting. So if people are getting impressions, and later on it's like, I thought this book was about joy. It's like, well, they have some joy, but also like these are the stories bringing some darkness for the contrast. So I was thinking about that when we were getting ready.
Yeah, when we first started working together, Dave, the first version I sent you, and then your notes back of like, hey, could you lighten this up a whole lot? I think that was my first revise and resubmit, so that was really fun for me.
Well, I was glad to be able to accept the revision. And it wasn't that the first one wasn't any good. It just was that we needed it to have like not just the
absolute bleakest ending possible.
Yeah. It was that was a really bleak ending. You're right.
It was.
This is the peek behind the curtain, y'all. This is before the book even was here.
I mean, is it asking too much to ask, like, do you want to give us a glimpse into what the original ending was?
I think it was pretty simple, just like everyone dies and there's no hope.
I didn't mean to laugh at that, but I can relate.
Yeah.
So that makes me a bit curious about how each of you sort of came into the project. Like, what was your first invitation into Glitter and Ashes, and how did you decide, yeah, I'm doing this and I know exactly what I want to put in?
Mine was weird. I have a problem where I don't know the heart of my story until I have somewhere to send it. And this story had actually been just floating around in several versions on my hard drive and didn't have an ending until I saw the call for submissions. And I was like, now I know where this is going. I know that they need to come out on the other side of this in a certain way. So yeah, that story had just been cooking, and until Glitter and Ashes came along, it wasn't right.
I think mine had been floating around in various forms for a couple years at the point of the call, and it's a weird little thing that I think a lot of people read as more of a bummer than I think of it as. But so like I saw this call and I was like, oh, I'm definitely submitting something, and I think I have the thing that is that I really want to submit. And I think I think I've sent Dave something for every call, like every short fiction call since then. And which I think suggests how strongly I vibe with Neon Hemlock's whole thing. So I hope to be doing that. I hope to be pestering Dave with submissions for a long time to come.
Well, in your story was the first one I accepted from the submitted ones. Like I was just absolutely, and then I realized I needed to like slow my roll and like look at the other ones before I accept it anymore. So you were like this one lone acceptance, and then I was like, I need to read the rest.
I don't think I knew that. Oh, that's a fun thing to learn.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the unifying concept of the collection, right? Glitter and Ashes is such it invokes so much. And so, Dave, I want to know sort of whether or not you conceptualized first and accepted stories second, or if you were looking for stories and once you had everything you wanted, you realized that there was a unifying concept. And then for each of you, for all of you, I'd like to know kind of where and how the stories that you contributed connected to the unifying concept of the collection as a whole.
It's like the two genders, there's glitter and there's ashes, you know. So the way this project worked in general was like I put together the concept, asked a handful of people to give me stories for it. And I did a Kickstarter at the time, and then I had open submissions. And so these fine humans before you, their stories came from the open submissions. And even the folks that I had asked beforehand, I hadn't actually written the stories yet. And it was the first anthology I'd ever edited. So I didn't say like, what's yours going to be about? I was just like, will you write something? And people gave me like really wildly different stuff than I perhaps thought that they would be. And it ended up all sort of coming together in like a, metaphors are failing me, but it came together in a way that felt pleasing. And I think that was where, like with AP's story, like initially I wasn't sure of the tone exactly where it was going to land. And so it was like, oh, I really like this. It's just not exactly where everything else is going to be. So that was why it turned into a, hey, are you interested in tweaking this a little bit so that I can use it? Because right now it's great. It's just not quite like nailing the theme of the anthology, which was like half stated and then half sort of coalescing as the other stories were coming together. Yeah, so I think that's sort of as much as I can say thoughtfully about it beforehand. And this, aside from I think I was just also being informed by the events of the year, because this came out late in the summer, and I think the stories were submitted. Well, actually, the stories were all submitted and accepted before March 2020. So, yeah, I guess it is what it is.
And for each of the rest of you, can you tell me a bit about sort of how your story is connected to the larger theme?
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's hard for me to remember exactly because 2019, as we all know, was about 6 million years ago. But I am pretty confident that I thought, oh, this story isn't hopeful enough for what Dave's doing. So like, I think I thought it would come back to me. But like stories of like hope and survival, or maybe not survival in the apocalypse, are like so fundamental to the kind of stories that I tell over and over again, that it was like I just had to sort of figure out what I wanted to do. And I had this one that like was deeply meaningful to me. And it's one of those things where like, I don't know where y'all are at, but like my experience as a writer is I never have any idea in advance if the stuff that like really is meaningful to me is going to be the stuff that lands for an audience. There doesn't seem to be a strong correlation there. So I was just delighted to see this come together and just to be this like little tiny, very, very short thing that's a part of it.
Amazing, thank you. Izzy?
Oh, I kind of, first of all, this idea for the story came to me in a dream because I'm a weirdo. And that is why it does sort of come into this sort of dreamlike quality. But I think also that the heart of the story is in Blackness, because as Black people who are the descendants of enslaved people, we already had an apocalypse. Like, we had a full apocalypse. And I feel like culturally, we're still coming out on the other side of that. And that's kind of what my characters are doing. And I feel like that feels very applicable for a lot of marginalized people. So to have this fat, Black, non-binary person being able to move through the world was kind of the seed of truth inside of my story.
I'm really glad you said that, because all of the short stories that I write also come from dreams. And I know a lot of Black creatives, especially, who use dreams as sort of a navigation tool for their creative outlets. And I wonder if there is something to that. Before we move on, do you want to say a little bit more about that?
It does sometimes feel a little bit like your ancestors are speaking to you in your dreams when something feels really big and important inside your dreams. So yeah, that makes total sense to me. I can totally see that.
Thank you.
And that point you said too, Izzy, about the past, present, future qualities of apocalypse and how like people are in varying states of them now, was something that wasn't really in my brain when I started throwing the book together, but it quickly became a part of it. Particularly because, so Avery Alder, who wrote the book, it is a book, but wrote the game at the end of the book. She put that kernel in my head like really early on in the process, and I think that did help reframe what I was thinking of what the stories needed to be, and the idea that like what's one person thinks of as the apocalypse, the impending apocalypse, is like what happened to them 5 years ago, right? And or is happening to them every day. So that was a useful reframing for me in the like ideation stage, and I think it is true of your piece and also some of the other stories in the book in a way that felt really meaningful.
Thank you. AP, would you like to speak on your contribution and how you feel it connected to the theme as well?
Yeah, this was the first story. This was like my first pro story sale. So before I even submitted this, I was like submitting to my critique group, and I think like what Izzy said, it was just kind of floating around for a while, and I was getting mixed feedback on it. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, and then I just kept working at it, and I'm pretty sure the Glitter and Ashes submission was the second or third place I sent it to. But it wasn't until Dave, this is the importance of working with a great editor. It wasn't until Dave came back with hey, this is too bleak for the theme that we're thinking. What do you think about this? That the story really took shape for me, because before then it was just kind of like mostly vibes and just kind of like an idea and like some scenes playing out in my head. But it wasn't until Dave read the story and it was reflected back through him that I kind of understood what I was trying to do. And the changes that Dave suggested and that I ended up making, I think made the story much better. And that's where I found the heart of the story. It's thanks to Dave, basically. So thank you.
Amazing. Dave, it seems like you did quite an incredible job assembling a really good collection here.
I mean, the book's really good, but also if people bring stories as good as the ones that these folks brought, it makes my job easy. That's all I'm saying.
And we all want to have that job be as easy as it has been, right? So what I'd like to do is invite you all to read a brief excerpt from your work, if you would like. I think we'll start just based on the order that I have looking in front of me. If Izzy, you would like to go first.
I would be delighted to. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's incredibly short. It's like one page front and back here. So like, so I couldn't figure out a way to just excerpt it, but like I think the only thing you need to know, the only context here that I like people to know about this is that this takes its title from my favorite line from my favorite James Joyce story. It's just the kind of obnoxious thing I do with my titles. And I'm sorry. I know that's a lot. This is The Descent of Their Last End. Ash falls on Eve's tent like snow. Its sound reminds her of trips to the beach as a child, of the patter of sand as it slipped through her fingers, a sound so soft and unassuming that when she hears it, sometimes she can still fall into one of her books and forget that there will be no more trips to the beach, no future at all, that everything slips away. Then the ash will build up so thick the tent starts to sag, or the sound of Lilith's grand project, whatever it is, will cut through the silence, and Eve will be thrown back into the present. The tent is packed with books, far more than she'll have time to read. The temperatures are already rapidly falling, and their food will not hold out forever. But Lilith let her bring as many books as she wanted, so many that each night when it is too dark to work, Lilith has to push small piles of books out of the way to crash beside her. Eve reads and Lilith works, and the ash of the end of the world falls upon them, insistent as rain. The rain of the dead, Eve thinks, and then dismisses the thought. When Eve has to leave the tent to relieve herself or cook dinner with their dwindling supplies, she is careful not to look behind the tent, not to spoil the project Lilith has been working on. My last installation, Lilith called it once, the only time she had broken their rule not to speak of lasts. When they break bread, when they share whispered kindnesses, when Eve reads aloud as Lilith drifts off to sleep, when they explore each other's bodies, they never say, "This may be the last time." The ash says it for them. 100 books still left unread, but it is the left hand of darkness, dog-eared and spine broken, that Eve is reading when Lilith finishes her project. "You may look," she calls into the tent. Eve puts the Le Guin aside and steps out of the tent. Around her, the glacial valley stretches away in silence, bits of green still visible in sheltered places. The ash has not yet covered all. Behind the tent are a cluster of bicycles, their faded blue and violet frames strangely alien amidst the ancient landscape. Each bike is partially buried in the gray earth. They look ready to break from the ground like a flock of clockwork birds about to burst into flight. They will fly without riders. Eve has never witnessed anything so beautiful. "It's perfect," she says. "Too bad no one will see it." "Do you see it?" Lilith asks. Eve runs her hands over the handle of the lead bike. The wheel rotates slowly. "I do," she says. "Well then." Lilith brushes ash flakes from her shoulder. They stand for a long time in silence until the dim glow of the sun behind the clouds sinks towards the horizon. "Come inside," Eve says. "I'll read to you." Hand in hand, they enter the tent. The ash falls like snow on the tent, the bicycles, the earth. Thanks.
I'm so enamored with that. Thank you. Beautiful. I want us to take a moment to appreciate that. And then, AZ, if you're ready, you're up.
The air just kicked on, and you can probably hear that it has a whistle. So can we come back to me in a minute?
Sure.
Awesome.
AP, would you like to go instead?
Sure, I'll go. Izzy, that was a great reading. That was really wonderful. So I'm reading from Safe Haven, the story that Dave put in this collection. Thank you. Mile after mile, my throat has been getting worse. I tap your shoulder, desperate for a break. The shadows between the broken buildings are enough cover for the moment. Every lungful of air makes my throat itch, but we've been running all morning and I'm ready to collapse. You feel it too, but you don't complain. You never complain, never need a break, and I can't help resenting you for that. I'm still mad. You know I can never just let a fight go. I'm too proud, and knowing that about myself makes me angrier. Why can't you see it my way? Trying to help others is too risky. I want us to be safe. You want everyone to be safe. The bandana plastered over my mouth is soaked through with sweat and spit. The falling ash sticks to it, and every breath tastes like the end of the world. I fumble with my canteen and press the warm tin against my cracked lips. You used to say they were so soft. The last of my water trickles down my throat like shards of a broken mirror. I want to cough. That much noise is dangerous. I hold my breath until my lungs scream and my chest burns and I gasp for air. My throat is an inferno now, and now I'm out of water. You hold out your canteen. I refuse. I used up my water and I have to live with it. I won't give you the satisfaction of helping me right now. You know how petty I get. We're almost there anyway. I tighten the strap of my pack. We need to keep moving. The dull roar of thunder accompanies us. The clouds threaten rain but never deliver. Can you remember the last time it rained? I almost ask you before I catch myself. What I wouldn't give for just a few drops. Enough to fill our canteens, to wash us clean. A scream echoes across the ruined city. I stumble forward, crouching down in the shadow of a building. You dive down next to me, and we lay still for a moment, panting. I point over your shoulder through the alley, risking the movement. The river is visible down the hill, a darker gray background between the buildings. We have to keep moving. We're so close. Another beast screams, its hellish wail echoing in the gloom. A weeper hunting us. A second monster answers, ahead and to the left, much closer. They're surrounding us and we're out of time. Vamos, you whisper with your eyes. I push myself off the building. We stumble down the alley. My legs burn as I pull my boots through the oily mud. More wails tear through the air. They're getting closer. Your foot catches and you pitch forward. I catch your arm before you fall and we stumble into a pile of garbage together. Old cans and bits of plastic cascade off the mound. A chorus of screams fills the air around us, closer this time, right on top of us. You shove me forward and I yank us into a doorway, scrambling to get under cover. I shut the door behind us, barely able to hear the latch over the pounding of my heart, and we crouch under a grimy window. A weeper pads into the alley, and we duck down out of sight. It scuttles forward and pounces on the spilled garbage, hungry for our blood. I close my eyes to the world, hoping to shut out the sound of it, but it's like its image is imprinted inside my eyelids. I can see it tearing through the pile with black claws and spidery limbs, scattering trash to find its prey. Its smell seeps into the ruined building and I gag on the sweet rot. You squeeze me tight and I try to get a hold of myself. We barely breathe. We just shiver together. For comfort, for safety, the way we've been holding each other for years. It's easier to be brave when I'm in your arms, but I'm still a coward. I'm just scared for you, for me, for us. Scared about our fight and what you'll do to help others. I want to tell you I'm sorry, that I love you, but I don't. I can't. Not right now. There.
Fuck. It's okay. I can say fuck. We can say fuck on this live stream here. Thank you, AP, for sharing that excerpt.
Thank you.
I'll give you the choice, Dave or AZ, who wants to go next?
I'm free from the terrible whistling noise.
Beautiful. AZ, do you think you could move a little bit closer to your camera because your
Yes.
volume is a little low?
Kind of. You all are sitting on top of my loom right now.
In the meantime, I'll let our viewers know as you're watching, if you have any questions that you want to ask our authors tonight, you can leave them as a comment under the video that you're watching right now. So please comment any questions that you have and we'll get to them at the end of our program tonight.
All right. At night, the colorful marks of endings were dark as dried blood, and the ghosts shifted and moaned in hidden places. Char slipped through the gloom with a practiced ease, stepping over spalls of concrete as if they'd memorized their places. Their size had once made them careful around people who elbowed and scowled, and those skills had gone on being useful long after all the people had gone. Well, not all of them. Char had met a few dozen people who hadn't popped, including Maya, who lived in an old Victorian that made for a welcome pit stop during scavenging runs. Nobody was a better scavenger than Char, but they had a tendency to lose track of time. Staying with Maya would mean that they wouldn't have to risk going all the way back home in the dark when thieves and worse came out of the splattered buildings and looked for people heading home with their hauls. At this time of night 3 years ago, the crows would have been gathering in this part of the city, settling down to roost, but crows were smarter than Char was. They had moved on to places where no one lurked in the darkness, and eventually all the other birds had followed. Char missed the sounds of sparrows and finches, and wished they knew where all the birds had gone. Perhaps they'd gone through the splashes of color, which looked in places like human-shaped holes to colorful new landscapes. Music and light poured out of Maya's place. The hum of diesel generators backed the thudding beats with their low voices and filled Char's skull with their fumes. Char's head ached as they went past the bouncer, Cody, who let them pass with a friendly nod. Char had known Maya since the beginning, Cody almost as long. Despite the loud music, the mood inside was subdued. People stood in tight knots or sat elbow to elbow on plush, aged velvet couches. Chipped cups of moonshine were clutched in unsteady hands. Few people spoke, and nobody danced. The place had the atmosphere of a funeral. Char passed through quickly, not wanting to listen to the latest sad story of someone disappearing into the growing forest outside town. They just wanted to rest. Maya usually held court over a small group of her favorites in the big bedroom upstairs, but Char found her alone, looking into a cup of whiskey that smelled like paint thinner. Maya, only one thing could dampen the nightly party at Maya's. Leon went chromate yesterday. Maya's voice was barely audible over the noise from below. Leon had been one of her favorites, a skinny little man who could pick any lock. They tried to get him out of the city, but it was too late. He started popping people and they had to put him down. Oh, Maya. Char dropped her heavy sack of parts by the door. At least if he'd gotten out of the city, he might have lived. They say oracles live out there, that it's the city that makes them dangerous. Maya didn't look up, lost in whiskey and what could have been. I know. Char wanted to believe it. Believing that meant that maybe there was some hope that people who had gone chromate could recover, or that those who had vanished were still alive, but there was no proof, and false hope seemed worse than none. I'm tired, Char. I try not to show it, because people come here to forget their troubles, but I'm tired. Char knew. They could tell by her eyes, which looked through people before looking at them. They could tell by her voice, growing quieter every day. They could tell by her body, once lush as Char's own, which had eaten away at its own curves and curled inward like a pill bug trying to save itself from a bird's beak. This new world swallowed people whole. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Maya said. She put her cup down, the fringe on her leather jacket dipping in the amber liqueur. That's okay. Char crossed to her, helped her take off the old jacket, buttery soft from years of wear. It smelled like smoke. You don't have to. Where will everyone go? Maya asked. Where will people sleep if not here? You can think about that later, all right? Other people can help. You know I will. They fixed Maya's long dark hair, which was caught in her earrings, twin waterfalls of silver leaves that tinkled when she moved. People always brought her earrings in exchange for shelter and sweet forgetfulness. Do you want to rest for a while? You look like you haven't slept. I've been awake since I heard about Leon. I tried to sleep, but I had nightmares. I used to dream in black and white, but now I dream in color. Only bad dreams, though. It seems like all I have are nightmares.
Dang. Oh my gosh. Okay, Neon Hemlock. I see what you're about now. Thank you so much, Izzy. That was so beautiful. For those of you who are watching from home, just know that you can order this book either through lostcitybookstore.com or go on to find Neon Hemlock's website and order directly from them. But if you're not getting this book, you're missing out. That's all I'm going to say. Dave, are you ready?
Sure. I might cheat and read rather than my note from the editor, I might cheat and read the poem that opens the book. This is called Wrath of a Queer God. It's by Anthony Mole. And they actually have so the story behind this is they sent me like 5 or 6 different poems that they've been writing about the end of the world, and let me like sift through them and pick one. And the other poems are coming out on September 25th in their new book called You Cannot Save Here. So if you like it, you should go get their book, which this might be in there as well. I'm not sure, but the other ones are incredible, and it was really hard to choose. This is the most like prose poem-y of the lot. So Wrath of a Queer God. The first ones to go would be the tasteless. Anyone who has wielded unrhymed sacred text as armament, made body holy with Leviticus, or even denied a name at holiday dinner. I'd be an Old Testament type, no Greek. No fear as I cast down my wisdom in the form of lightning bolts, flooding southern towns that build billboards for blonde Jesus. Thou shalt have no other before me in hairy legs and platform heels. Next, I'd come for the trailer parks. Not that the salt of the earth have wronged, but to deny shame of my own genesis, leaving only the baby butch tufts to testify, to reinscribe the words awesome and enormity with the weight they're due. The rich I'd eat whole, consuming capital and shitting out bread in boutique health clinics. This hunger not only devastates, but lets rise thrift store monarchs, the most clever among you, now kings in their knockoff luxury, now queens in their shoplifted Mac. I'd tear to timber every suburban church, in part for their precepts, but more for their aesthetic. How dare build anything but peacocked glory, stone and glass phalluses? Look now to the lesbian witches in hiking boots. Let them show you what structures the moon desires. I am everything you say I am. Witness my agenda, shade and spite, swallowing men whole. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for reading for us this evening. We have some more time, and I'd like to ask you all to kind of get into it with each other a little bit. I'm curious about, do you all have any questions or thoughts that you want to offer each other about your work? Are there some insights or questions or thoughts or inspirations that you've had from each other that you want to share right now? Dave, you might have to go first in this.
I totally can. I was trying to be, patient and let someone else go first if they wanted to, but I guess I'm curious if there are like further themes in the apocalypse, post or current or pre, that you are interested in exploring in your own work, or that you have explored in your other work, or like if to totally get you out of jail free here, if there's other works in the genre that you found really compelling that you want to talk about.
I'll jump in if that's all right. I was gonna say that between Glitter and Ashes and then living through an apocalypse, my main takeaway, and I think what's kind of bled into my writing since then, is that it seems like apocalypses they don't like go off with a bang. You know, it's not just like this massive thing happens. It just feels like we just live through this slow, trudging, horrific molasses of an experience that gets worse and worse and never ends, and you wake up the same way every day, and so it's like this like drowning in monotony of awful. And that between Glitter and Ashes and the pandemic, that like I feel like everything I've written since then has had elements of that. So I'm half blaming you, I'm half blaming the pandemic.
I just like I'm obsessed with bugs in the apocalypse. I mean, partly because I'm just weird and I love bugs. But I just like anything that deals with metamorphosis and transitions, because that's what an apocalypse is. It's something changing into something else. And I want bugs. Like if you show me a bug, I'm going to be so happy, because they're such a wonderful metaphor, but they're also creepy and they give decay. And I find that the stuff that I'm most drawn to is probably going to have a bug in it, which is why my story is called Imago.
Yeah, I'm thinking about years ago now, I was talking with friends about how singularly useless my skill set is for an apocalypse, right? I have whatever the exact opposite of a green thumb is. Like, I'm not technically savvy, right? Like, I can't fix things. I don't have any like medical experience, anything like that. And I was like, I'm just a liability um, in the apocalypse. And uh, my friend Ellie Banks, who's an amazing writer and a deeply kind person. Yep. Speaking of glitter and ashes, said that's just you're just buying into some capitalist bullshit, Izzy, because what you're thinking is that like if you don't have a saleable set of skills, you don't have anything useful to bring. Whereas like what you really need in the apocalypse is people who will work together to survive it. And I have to say that like that line of thinking has been really influential in my work about like the desperate need we have for community in tough times, right? But also then people who act it with ill will know that and try to prey on communities, right? Try to prey on the ways that they have a tendency to want to see the best in their members, and right, assume that people are acting in good faith. And so like this fundamental thing that like we need each other if we're going to survive, right? And I think like climate change is the obvious example of that. But also we need to be able to recognize that there are people within our groups who will do harm. And like I keep writing about that over and over obsessively. And I haven't come to any real conclusions about what needs to be done about that. So if y'all figured out, please like drop me a DM or something and tell me, because I would love to know.
Can I be in on the group chat for the answers to those questions, please? Yeah, thank you all so much. This has been an incredible reading, and I'd like to convey some of the comments that we have. We don't have any questions yet from our viewers, but we have a lot of really joyful comments. The first one is, I'm so excited. Early on, someone commented, dark queer joy is still joy. Factual. This one I think was in the context of an earlier conversation. Rocks fall, everyone dies. True, I think. And then I love this comment. Everything Neon Hemlock puts out is so thoughtful, and everything they've published contributes to this vibrant and dynamic worldview that I greatly cherish. So some very heartfelt words. We had a few comments during your readings that were praising the stories. And lastly, I've got one that says, agree about bugs and fun guy all the way. So I just wanted to let you all know about those comments. In our last few minutes, I know that Dave, you had a couple of particular questions for everyone that you mentioned earlier, if you wanted to bring those out.
Kind of cheated and already used some of them. I guess maybe I can just be cheeky and ask people if they have anything coming up that they are excited about, that they would like to tell us about. Yeah, maybe go from there. I'll tell you what I'm excited about first. This book just showed up, which is We're Here 2021, the best queer speculative fiction of the year. And we have the delight and good fortune to be partnering again with Lost City and Shady for an event next month, which will have editor LD Lewis, as well as why am I blanking? Sam Miller, Sherry Kamai, and Shingai and Jerry Kagunda for another one of these events just like this. But it's giving like the Lisa Frank queer cover Trapper Keeper energy that I have just really been needing. So excited that these just showed up in my house.
Awesome. We are so excited to have you again. This has been incredible.
A lineup that is too for that event. That is amazing. Yeah. I guess I can go next. It's not something that is coming out, but I guess I will mention my debut collection, All the Hometowns You Can't Stay Away From. It just came out. If you like stories of queer communities trying to survive bad times, then I think you'll find a lot to enjoy in there. What else? I've got a story coming out. I think, Dave, that we can talk about TOC. So I got a story coming out in Luminous Machinations, the upcoming project from Neon Hemlock, and not my work, but I've had the opportunity now to read a couple of the Neon Hemlock novellas that are coming out next year, and they're amazing and wildly different and exciting, and like y'all need to get them, and then we can like geek out about them together.
I feel like that's probably my cue, because one of those novellas coming out next year is mine. It's called Off Time Jive, and it's about magic in the Harlem Renaissance, and it's real gay. But more closer to now, I have some poetry coming out in an anthology called Hell is Real. And it's up for pre-order now, and you can find them at hellisrealanth.com.
Izzy's also in our recent title, Baffling Year One. Actually, Izzy's also in this too, which collects all of the stories from Baffling's first year. That's why it's called Baffling Year One. I can do better at talking about this next time. And that's also exciting, which recently got a starred review from Publishers Weekly. We were hype about, which Glitter and Ashes also did too, but this is a brand new starred review. So
cool. And I'm glad you led the way, Izzy, with that, because I wasn't sure if we were allowed to talk about luminescent machinations or not. So once again, Izzy, we're TOC mates, so I'm excited for that coming up. And then I just had a story come out in Speculative City magazine online called Retinopathy, and you can find that online at speculativecitymag.com, I believe.
Absolutely brilliant. It's been such a pleasure meeting you all And my only wish is that I had known when submissions were happening for this anthology, because every short story I write is post-apocalyptic queer fiction. So, I could be up there with you guys. But this has been utterly brilliant. I hope that you all enjoy all of the success that you deserve from this anthology. And is there any, lastly, actually, for our viewers at home, can you let us know where, if you would like to be followed on social media, for example, or if you have a website, where can we keep up with each of you, as well as Neon Hemlock?
Sure. And I just want to say thanks for letting us talk about this book and our work. It's really cool to get to connect with Lost City in general, being here in DC, but also with you in particular. Thanks for hosting this reading and conversation. It's been really cool. Neon Hemlock, you can find at neonhemlock.com, and then it's just Neon Hemlock on all the socials. And then I'm at dave-ring.com, and my Twitter profile is like hop.
Thank you so much, Shady, for hosting and being just making the space for us. It's been a real delight. The only social media I use with any regularity is the hell site of Twitter that I keep planning to leave but never do. I'm at IZZYXEN there, and it's mostly shit posting. Today I was on some BS about Emma Goldman. So whatever comes up. And my website is izzywasserstein.com.
I'm just going to add my thanks too, because this was absolutely lovely. My website is azlouise.com. My Twitter is az_Louise. And much like Izzy, you're going to get some shit posts. In fact, this is a wrestling t-shirt, so you're going to hear like a lot about that.
It looks like a heavy metal t-shirt, so I love
Yes,
the combo.
it's my favorite metal boy.
I've learned more about wrestling than I ever thought that I would from your Twitter account, actually. So
I love it so much. Here's the thing about wrestling that a lot of people don't realize. Wrestling is camp.
Yeah, the pageantry of it seems pretty great, even if, yeah.
It makes me extraordinarily happy, and you're going to see a lot of it if you follow me.
I'm just putting it out there that if we got queer wrestling flash fiction to baffling, be very open-minded. Just putting it out there.
There's a pretty prominent queer wrestling scene in DC, just FYI.
Is
I know
there?
some people. I can link you up. That's all I'm gonna say at this
Is it
time.
like underground, or am I just so far above ground I don't know about it?
It's anyway. AP,
we can talk later.
Where can we find you?
I just want to echo everyone. Thank you so much for having us, Shady, and thanks, Dave, for organizing this. I'm at apthayer.com or apthayer on Instagram and Twitter. Just find me anywhere there.
Perfection. Thank you all again. And for those of you watching at home, if you don't already have your copy of the book, you can order it direct at lostcitybookstore.com. And you can keep up with us, Lost City Bookstore, at lostcitybookstore.com, and also on Instagram, Twitter, and sometimes on TikTok, but don't look too closely at those. I have been your host. My name is Shady Rose. I've been so pleased to be here, and thank you all so much for joining me tonight. On that note, our live stream is over. Join us next time on Lost City Books channel.